still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. The return of the Entertainers is a walking football match that takes place at Gateshead Leisure Centre on Saturday the 6th of June 2026 in aid of Age UK North Tyneside. Sponsored by Shout Digital and Darren Baldwin Funerals. Tickets available from our website or from Voucher. There's also an opportunity for you to play in the game, either with or against the legends. Go to our website nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk for more details. 29th of January 2027 sees an evening with Beardsley, Cole and Ferdinand at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House, hosted by John Gibson. Tickets are on sale now from the box office 0191 243 1171 or tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk or directly from us at our website. Northern Horizon is a Blake 7 convention in aid of Age UK North Tyneside. Tickets available from our website. And Rebel Base Northeast, a Star Wars fan convention, Sunday the 2nd of August at the Copthorne Hotel. Tickets available on our website. The Craze, Fred Dinage, Ronnie, Reggie and Me takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House, box office 0191 243 1171 or tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk. That takes place Wednesday the 11th of November at 7:30. We've also got some books available on our website. Will Scott's popular Entertainers book, 92 to 97, Kevin Keegan's Legacy, is available now. And The Promoter and the Photographer, 25 years of bringing the stars to Tyneside, all proceeds going to Age UK. All books available, nufcmatters.co.uk.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you,
good morning, welcome along to NUFC Matters. It is another episode of Ask Penman. How are you, mate?
All good. How's yourself?
Very good, mate. Not getting as much sun as you, but good to see that the sun is still shining where you are in your part of the world and on your tour as you get a bit of R&R in, which is nice to see. There's been a lot of chat this week, and lots of things have happened, and lots of questions have come in. So I'll start with Gary's. He says, Stu, as I value your usual level-headedness during dark times, I guess, can you give us a realism check as to where you think the club is at this moment in time, and where you see us in 12 months' time?
Oh, good question. Where do I see us? I think we're underachieving for the talent of player that we have. that has been caused. I know the people point to one transfer window where we spent a lot of money, but there was preceding that there was several where we didn't spend anything, and it seems to be two stop-start. Someone comes in with a plan, and then they go, then there's a new plan, and then they go, then there's a new plan. I'd like to think David Hopkinson has his finger on the pulse commercially. I'd like to think Ross Wilson knows what he's doing, hence the reason that he was headhunted. And in 12 months' time, will be established as a top 6, top 7 team. And we have punched above our weight for the last 4 years. It was such a meteoric start as well. Like, it was stuff from dreams, wasn't it? Just about on the verge of relegation, and the following season qualify for the Champions League. That's normally Roy the Rover stuff, but we lived it and we wanted more, and we were getting fed from the top that more is coming. And it's just plateaued off at the moment, Steve. That's exactly where we are. I don't get to the restrictions, and that Stephen Mawson also seemed to agree with my slant that the club did have money to spend. So that leads to another question: is why aren't they spending it, and do they have other plans? It's all right saying big plans for the summer, but we've been habitually slow buyers. You know, it's not like the Chelseas and Man Cities now. Those two clubs played in the World Club Championship as well. If anyone should be crying about the amount of games, it's them. But they're not, because they know the backlash that would come and the size of the squads and how they've been allowed to build it. So we are swimming uphill with one hand tied behind our back. But that doesn't mean that we can't achieve. We've already proven that in the last 4 years what can be achieved. And if we break it down without the emotion, we're not far off qualifying for Europe again next season. We're still in the FA Cup. We've still got a great chance of getting into the knockout stages of the Champions League. And we bowed out in the second leg of the semi-final of the League Cup, the one that we were defending. So when you put it like that, it doesn't sound bad at all. It sounds, I mean, if you go back the last 20, 30 years, that's, you know, you would snap people's hands off for stuff like that. The issue is it's the eye test. We can see that when we are getting wins, they're not like dominant wins as we've been accustomed to. You know, you don't get the 3-1s, 4-0s as often as days gone by. It seems to be, if you look at like Leeds and Forest and Wolves, they seem to be like last minutes or hanging on. And you can only say we've dominated 2 or 3 games this season in the league. So that's the where have we been sussed out? Is there too much loyalty to certain players? Is the squad depth there? Is there something going on behind the scenes? I just thought it was a bit shameful the way Jamal Lascelles was like to slink out with the club. You know, the man who had been captain for so long and given a lot every time he played. You know, you knew you were going to get 100%. It wasn't the most talented, but he was certainly committed. And, you know, there was no real fanfare from it. And it makes you wonder, like, is there things going on that are causing it? We can see players that aren't happy. That's when they are happy and they're on top of the game. They are genuinely world class. And that'll probably lead us on to Tonali. We said all throughout last season that we have 2 genuine world-class players, and that was Isak and Tonali. Now, if we're to let Tonali leave this summer, or if it follows the same path, then we've learned nothing at all, and there could be civil unrest. But if he is to go, then do we bow down to it and get it done early, which would make the transfer window better? Or are we then seen still as a selling club, and as soon as a bigger club comes in, courts one of our players, we just collapse and let them have it? So this summer's going to be huge transfer window wise. I think in 12 months' time we'll be a lot more stable. And actually, daft as it sounds, and if people want positivity, I did say I think we'll win the league in 2027. Now, where I get that from is obviously it's the centenary year, but it could be a year without the Champions League, without European competition, and with money spent. As long as it's spent wisely and in the right positions, and the squad has been refreshed, then there's no reason why we can't get higher up the table with the less amount of games. And then I just use Hearts as an example. They didn't qualify for Europe and they've managed to sustain the title challenge. So that's not me saying Newcastle win the league next year, but I think they'll be a lot more consistent in it. But it's a huge summer for Hopkinson, for Wilson, and for Eddie Howe himself.
I mean, you've touched on the Tonali thing, so we'll go with it. I mean, you know, that Tonali statement from his agent yesterday was quite a strange one, because it was an interview with the newspaper, and, you know, obviously, you know, then Ross Gregory from the Chronicle got it. There's a few other journalists ran with it. I mean, agents do, you know, what they do because they want to make money, and, you know, he's clarified that, you know, at the moment Tonali's happy and he wants to get Champions League for Newcastle, but that they'll look at it in the summer, and that's where these issues come from, and that comes only a few days after the transfer window closes, and the agent is denying any kind of contact with Arsenal. You know, Tonali's happy, he doesn't want to go anywhere. All of this must be done with the players' knowledge, because that's, you know, agents have to speak to their players, Stu.
Of course, I mean, it shouldn't be a shock in agents doing the job, but it doesn't mean agents do a good job for the game of football as a whole. The agent gets paid commissions for sales, he gets percentages of bigger salaries. So, of course, if he's got someone who is touted as one of the best midfielders in Europe, albeit he's currently not at his best form, then it's a way of him generating more income, and that has to be understood. But I agree, I don't think he would have said much without Tonali's approval, because if not, then he'd find himself without a player to be an agent of. Because that's what I would do if someone was speaking on my behalf and saying things that could be seen as unrest. Then you wouldn't want to, you'd disassociate, wouldn't you? Especially if you're employing them. But it's too fresh in our minds what happened with Isaac last season. It's like we've just seen this movie and it's not a good ending. And the only way Tonali can, if he wants Champions League football with Newcastle, then he's got to not just improve his performance, but take more leadership and improve those around him, because he is capable of doing it. We've seen him before, leading by example, dragging the team forward, making the right pass. You know, it's not just a yard short or a yard too heavy or a yard too behind or a yard too in front. He's normally been so concise with his passing, which he hasn't been of late. And if he's going to go, I don't want him to go. I think he's a player that we should be building a team around. He should be one of the untouchables. But because of that makes him more touchable by teams who can nigh on guarantee Champions League football year on, and we can't. So it's going to be growing pains. And I just think the way that we do business, then the World Cup, I just hope that the business is done early and we're not scrambling the last few days or last week or so off the window trying to put a squad together, because everyone else has just taken our prized assets and we've just sat back and been reactive instead of proactive, which is something that needs to change very quickly.
Nightwave says, question for you both, lads. From your point of view, excluding the CEO interview, where do you see Newcastle in 2030?
I think he means the club, not the location of the city. So we'll go with, I don't think that it was helpful what he said. I know he's got to reiterate the long-term goals and stuff like that, but for me it was a bit tub thumping. Yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but he's not like, how are we going to do this? You know, there's no point in having a dream if you don't have a plan to achieve it. What I'd like to have heard is we're going to be a lot more aggressive commercially. We're going to grow the club exponentially on commercial revenue, whether that be stadiums, whether that be front of shirt, whether that be training grounds. We are going to maximise the revenue, and that will give us a foothold to at least get close to the clubs and get closer to the clubs that every year on year, are allowed to spend more money than us from a higher starting position. Something that sounded more realistic like that would have, I think, galvanised the fan base, saying, yeah, we're in together, we know we're up against certain things, but we're going to do all we can. Now, I don't think he said we will win the league. I think it was we'll be considered as one of the top teams in the league and in Europe, etc. Maybe I misheard it, but I don't think he said by 2030 we'll win. Sorry, 2030 we will win the league. I think it was a case of we'll be contenders. But if he has said win the league, then he's just making a rod for his own back, and it's unnecessary and amateurish, to be fair. You know, you have to be realistic in expectations, because if not, then you have supporters, fans, and you see the outcry that happens after every game that's not 1-3 or 4-0. They become more entitled because they're being fed. What they are being told is we are going to be the best. So it's not just going to happen at the start of the 29-30 season. It has to be a build-up between now and then. So this is what they've got to do now, is instead of just talking the talk, they've now got to start walking the walk. They need to get a stadium announced one way or the other, whether it's an expansion or whether it's a new stadium. They need to show that they're willing to bring top-end sponsorships in. And I think the first step with that would have been to bring a decent player in the last window, which for me is a gamble that's can only go one way, and it's not going to be in favour of Newcastle United's football team this season. By leaving that squad as threadbare as it is, you're just going to get more injuries, unfortunately, and there's no one to replace them.
I think at the end of the day, what he said in his interview is open to conjecture. Everybody seems to have a different opinion. Derek said he said consistently challenging the top 4 by 2030. But regardless of that, what Amanda said when she took over, what this CEO said, what Darren Eales has said, it's always going to be judged, and I do think that they just need a little bit more thought going into what they're going to say at these kind of things. And I think sometimes the press can catch people off guard, which is their job, and they're always going to go and try and get a headline out of something that's said. So yeah, I'm not having a pop at Hopkinson. I just think that what he said this week was, could have been thought out better, and especially with the way that the land lies with Newcastle at the minute, because people aren't, a lot of people are, not happy. There's there is grumblings, whether you're on social media, whether you're at the games, home and away, there are grumblings, and that is unfortunately what happens. It's what happens because Newcastle United fans, live and breathe the club 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. So that's it at the end of the day. And look, we have won a trophy. We have been in the Champions League. We've had some great games in the Champions League. We'll continue to have that this season. We have still got the FA Cup. But you can't, those people who are, trying to be positive and, and continue to be positive, and I see it in the chat. I've seen Jules saying some people don't want to come into the chat at the minute because it's negative. You have to take the rough with the smooth, and that goes for both sides, and nobody's right. Everyone's opinion is valid on this platform. That's what we've always said. And I very rarely get my chance to say what I have to say, but I think I've got my opinion over quite clearly, and I still feel that, I think that PIF are the owners. They are the people who should be coming out and speaking, and it shouldn't be Eddie Howe's shoulders that this all lands on, John Askew asked a question by email. Do you trust our club at the minute, Stu?
It's a very open question. In which way do you think that's meant?
Well, he's talking about transfers. The transfer window, he says, was the first test for Hopkinson and Wilson, and in his eyes, it didn't go well.
Well, it didn't go well because they didn't sign anyone. But then, could they have just signed someone for the sake of it and overpaid and et cetera, et cetera? But that just means to me, Ross Wilson knew he was coming before the day he agreed to sign. So there should have been. I still find it inexcusable that no one was brought in this window. I think the real proof in the pudding will be come the start of September next year, and we'll see what work has been done, because the squad does need overhauling. We know there's a lot of people the wrong side of 30, and a lot of them are in defence. There's an issue obviously in attack. The wingers seem to be not playing on the wing, and when they are getting crosses in, there's no one there. So there's a lot to be done, and I'd like to see the additions that come in don't have to be household names. They've just got to be people who can play a specific role in how Eddie Howe wants the team to be played, and I think we'll be all right. You're on mute, Steve.
Yeah, no, that's why I didn't speak. Night Waves, lads, I've seen a canny few fans saying that we should sign ASM. I wouldn't personally, but why do you think no other Premier League team has ever come in for him, Stu? Surely a Burnley could do with someone like him.
Try not to character assassinate, but I don't think ASM, for all the natural talent he's got, has the mental capability of being a team player and performing at the highest levels, such as the Premier League. He's shown he flattered to see in Saudi. He did the same in Turkey and the same in Mexico. And if he's not cutting in those leagues, it's highly unlikely he'll be able to come back to the Premier League and cut it in the Premier League again. It's a shame because he is talented, but again, it's it's hard to say one-dimensional, but it's head down, and he doesn't look, and he ends up just running across the pitch. I mean, that's what Gordon was doing at the start of the season when he was getting his critics, cut inside all the time and just going in a straight line and not actually beating anyone. And all it does is when he loses possession, people have went past him and are caught out of shape. So if someone else wants to take a punt on him, that's up to them. But I wouldn't be upset. I'd be disappointed if it was Newcastle.
Okay, another question from John. He said, did you think that Mr. Hopkinson's main role was related to raising revenue and that Mr. Wilson's was more football orientated? If so, have you been surprised that they spoke twice every day during the window? That would suggest that the revenue man might have a bit of influence on the transfer front. I'm wondering if Eddie's had any input at all.
Well, in that phraseology, the revenue man certainly does have an input on the transfer, because it's up to him to say, yes, the funds are available, or hang on, no, they're not. Let's see what I can do. But that's quite clear. The CEO's role is not just the commercial side. There's a CCO for that. Well, there isn't currently, but there should be a CCO for that. But the CEO has marketing and commercial experience, and Ross Wilson has got the football. So it's probably better to get people doing what they're good at rather than someone trying to be a jack of all trades. And that's always been the Saudi ideology, not just Saudi, the Middle East. When they're recruiting people, they recruit the best in that field, or who they deem to be the best in that field, or who would they think would fit into the company structure. And they've got more right than wrong, but unfortunately the ones that did get wrong has cost us as a football team badly.
Michael Bull, good morning. He says, what do you think of the rumour that's come around in the last 24 hours that Bruno could leave if an £80 million offer comes in from a Champions League team? And also, what did you make of Anthony Gordon's apparent hamstring injury against Man City? I don't think Bruno would leave. He would have to be told he's not wanted anymore for him to leave. But you can see the adulation he has from not just the fans, but from his teammates and from the manager. He really is imposed himself as missing Newcastle this season. And I think even if he was offered, unless it was like a Real Madrid, I don't think he would leave if it was down to him. But if the club tell him he has to leave because, look, that's an offer too good to be true, your age, etc., for the best of the club, I think it would be with a heavy heart. It would be like a Sean Longstaff style departure. Someone who's left who really didn't want to leave. Similar to Tonali when he came to Newcastle. So I can't say it won't happen, but I think it's highly unlikely. I think there'll be other players that will be courted more vigorously simply because they've got a better chance of getting them out of Newcastle. So Bruno, I would say no. And regarding the hamstring, I think enough's been written about that already. Maybe he was sore on both sides and just wanted to hold one on the way out. But the caption could be a bit disingenuous as well, because it was shown he was getting treatment on his left, but he could have been stiff there. They were stretching to see which one it is. He just said his hamstring. So I'm not going to defend what could well be the indefensible, but again, a photo can be very deceiving at times, as we both fell foul to in the past. Yeah. Martin Haddon obviously likes my singing. He says, how does Dolly Parton keep a swimming pool so clean? Chlorine, 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 chlorine. Thank you, Martin, for that one. Hope you're well, mate. Moving on to the questions, which we are getting a lot of questions in. Steve Hasty, good morning. He says, one issue regarding signings is that it would have to be immediate first-team starters. Eddie makes a lot on knowing the system before he starts players regularly. I mean, Steve, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we've signed a lot of players, and the feeling you get from Eddie sometimes at the press conference is that they're not first team ready for Newcastle at the moment. They're not used to it. It does take players time to settle in. But I found it rather bizarre, Steve, as we've mentioned on the Amigos last night, that we started a cup semi-final, second leg that we're 2-0 down in, leaving £120 million worth of talent on the bench, and deciding to play Anthony Gordon through the middle up front. I just found that bizarre. And I think that was a bit of a... I don't know what the point of that was, Stu. I don't know. I just felt that was a huge signal to everybody that those two just haven't, they just haven't done the business. And that might be unfair on Mortimer because he scored 9 goals, but then, he hasn't scored in 16, 17 games now. And Wissa is, it's an awful nickname to have, but he's like Wissa the Misser at the minute, and it's not the player that was, banging them in for Brentford last season. So, it is a bit of a problem, that, and it's been a problem area all season, the goal scorers.
Yeah, but that's not a problem. People will find something else to be a problem as well. And this is where I think Newcastle fans let themselves down with the criticism Wissa's been getting. And I hate comparing ourselves to Liverpool fans, but I go back to when Peter Crouch signed for them, and he hadn't scored for months. I think it's his 12th game or something before he managed to get one in. It was just hit off his leg or something like that. It wasn't a perfect strike, but they stuck with him and they backed him, as we did with Anthony Gordon when he joined and he wasn't doing well. And then the last day at Chelsea, that Anthony Gordon song was belted out, and you could see it visibly lifted him, and he scored that day, similar to Elanga. Whistler's a goal scorer. He's clearly not fully fit, but the only way he's going to get fit is by playing games. Now, we can all go back and be right about the past, but had he done his full pre-season, we would have seen a different Wissa. I just think we need to be more supportive of the players, because how do you expect to get the best out of them if we're constantly criticising them? Wissa, is he going to play today? I think he'd be begging to play today. But with Anthony Gordon starting, it was against Liverpool, Steve. I seen the benefit of that, but it was because I said it's something similar on the last time we did Ask Penman, which was 2 weeks ago. I would have done that against Man City. Just started Gordon and Langer up front. When I was explaining, just hit them, just to get the ball, boot the ball, and let them get after it with a pace. But he put Gordon in the middle of a three, which I suppose from the outsider looking in, thinking, well, hang on, what we're doing here? Well, it was done to stretch the Liverpool back line, because they're not the quickest. They're the two centre halves. Gordon has pace, and they can't keep coming forward and condensing our half of the pitch and just knocking the ball around us as they would, because we have a more static midfield than most teams, unfortunately. So the idea for Gordon being up front, I was all for. Voldemort wouldn't have done that. He would have encouraged the Liverpool players to come back, and we said just played, I think, started 2 games previous to that. So that part makes sense, because if not, we said then it'd be like, 3 games in a week, you're just going to injure these players. So when it comes down to it, we've all got opinions, but it's on Eddie Howe's shoulders at the moment, isn't it? He's deciding who is best for that particular game. And this is a man who doesn't rotate it, but I think it's been forced upon him now. He's got to look at each individual team and look at their weaknesses and how do we exploit them. And I thought playing with pace in front away to Liverpool, and for 40 minutes it proved to be the case, didn't it? But once again, we got excited after getting a goal in front away from home, and then just went to pot. But I understand why Gordon played there. Doesn't mean I believe he's a better centre forward, and no stretch of the imagination do I think that. But for that particular game, I think it made sense considering the circumstances.
Bottom line, the new fan base expects everything now. No patience being a football fan, is supporting through thick and thin, says Paul. Eddie gets criticised for not having a plan B. He tries plan C and gets slated, says Mark. Fair point, Mark. Fans complaining about Wissa and Voldemort. Both were bought late in the window. Will we learn and do what Eddie wanted and get transfers early in the window? It's going to be a tough window, the next one, the summer with the World Cup as well. So, that's another thing to bear in mind. Lots of questions. I do want to read this out. Phil Hussey sent me an email, and it's a forward email from Keith Barrett, actually. Keith Barrett's a well-known Newcastle United supporter. I used to organise many trips back in the day. It's a ticketing thing, I'm afraid. But he says, I urge every Newcastle United supporter to email the club and ask the simple question, why? The ticket situation is getting way beyond the realms of reason. The email that he's put together and to send to the club is this. Dear Newcastle United, I wonder if you could explain something to me, please. As a lifelong supporter of the club, nearing 70 years of age, why are you trying to spoil people's enjoyment of the matchday experience, as I think you now call it? It's a simple question. Why? Why are fans' anxiety levels raised at every game, every time they approach a turnstile to gain entry into a ground? Fans are now anxious every game as to whether their match ticket goes green or red. And if it goes red, you have to walk to a ticket office stand in another queue, which usually means missing the kickoff of the game. Bear with this because I've lost the thing. The kickoff of the game to identify yourself. Why do we have to do that? And also, why, if a friend who, for some reason or another, can't attend a game, whether it be of illness or a family matter or whatever, if they've been kind enough to pass on a match ticket to somewhere else, a friend passing on a ticket to a fellow Newcastle United supporter who wants to go and support Newcastle United, why does this person passing on the ticket have to be persecuted for helping another fan? Why is she subjected to match bans, away point deductions, etc.? Why does a ticket even have to be deemed red or green? If you pass on a ticket for the theatre or some other form of entertainment, a music gig, say, you can do so quite freely without the fear of retribution from anyone. Why did Newcastle United see fit to be judge and jury over a person's freedom to help a fellow supporter? Why? What is the reason? What is it you are trying to achieve by acting in this manner? Away games nowadays quite often involve an overnight stay because of the ridiculous kick-off times. I write this email now in a hotel room in Manchester after our semi-final defeat tonight at the cost of £90 on top of my travel costs, train or coach travel, a tank of petrol if going by car, maybe even time off work causing loss of earnings on top of the expenditure laid out to support the team, the club, Newcastle United. Then after going to all of that effort, time and money, the club, our club, who we support, will not let you into the ground just because a kind friend has passed on the ticket to you. Where is the logic in this behaviour, please? Can you explain this to me, Newcastle United? What are you trying to achieve? Then, while all this is going on, and I mean anyone, someone who's never been to a football match in their life before, a non-Newcastle United supporter, or even a supporter of another football club, a rival club, can go on to a third-party ticket website and providing he's got the extortionate funds that they charge at his or her disposal, can purchase a ticket, home or away, to attend any game of their choosing without any fear of the ticket going red and access being denied. Why is this going on? What sense does it make? And also, why do you refuse to trace these tickets from third-party websites to their origin? I've even offered to purchase one of these tickets myself and bring the ticket to you for inspection so it can be traced, but you're not interested in doing so. Why is that? And again, also, why can match tickets connected to corporate supporters be freely passed on to whoever the corporate business deems fit without any form of retribution? Why are supporters of Newcastle United split into different categories? Some who face punishment for harmlessly helping a fellow fan, and others who can do whatever they like with corporate or third-party tickets without fear of retribution. Would you have the common courtesy to explain this to me, please, Newcastle United? It is, as I previously stated, a simple question. Why are you doing this? I await your response with immense anticipation. Yours, Keith Barrett, Tyne, lifelong supporter. What do you make that, Stu?
Well, someone like Keith who's had to put that in writing, it shows how much frustration there is amongst the what we'll call legacy fans nowadays, we're called. But the simple answer, and the probably most specific answer, without trying to cause controversy, is they don't want you to have a season ticket. What they're trying to do is have it where there is less season ticket holders because they can maximise the revenue from each individual seat. I think that's been quite clear. When they first came in on the crest of a wave and the white horse, that was Amanda, the club at the time were very proactive. They were listening. There was workshops and there seemed to be action was taken. There was a lot of what we referenced at the time as easy wins, quick wins that were attainable and achievable, and they got them. But then they also had minority groups whispering in the ears about you can't have this type of fan there, this type of fan should be there, and be wording this carefully. These seems to be not challenged for political reasons, and now we're in a position where, for example, if I'm back home, Stephen, you've got a ticket for, I don't know, let's say Villa away next week, and I was back in Newcastle and you fell ill, and I've come to visit you, and you said, take my ticket. You would end up losing your ticket because someone who loves the tune goes to the match. You know what I mean? And it's a way of trying to get the to get the ticket back, and that's it. They'll try and hide it any way they want, but I'm quite confident that not all 20 Premier League clubs run this scheme. The most dangerous to me, and do they have to be reactive? Does it have to be where someone's beaten severely or knocked unconscious because their ticket went red on a random search and they've had to walk through throngs of home supporters to try and get the tickets? Imagine that if it's like a Leeds away or a Sunderland away, or even back in the day of the Chelsea's or West Ham's. It's that bit's not acceptable. I really don't think that should be done. And if someone's obtained the tickets and they've passed it on, I think sure that was passed on for no profit, then I don't see the issue. And sometimes we create our own issues, and it's not helping at all. It just, has anyone there got the cojones to put a stop to this and say, right, we need to be fair to the match-going fans, or fairer to the match-going fans. We shouldn't be looking to penalise these, because we've heard it from every single person who ever takes over a football club, the fans are the lifeblood. We'll show them a bit more respect, because treating them like criminals by suggesting that ticket might not be legitimate and making them, it's like a walk of shame, isn't it? They make them go around to the home box office to verify they are who they say they are, but then get in the ground. It doesn't matter if that person caused trouble. It's his ticket, it's his seat, it's his ticket. So it'll always come back, I wasn't there. This is the person I give it to. That's the simplifying, so that's too simple, I think. But as we've said before, common sense isn't common anymore. And some people look for reasons to change things rather than understand why they're changing them. But if you're changing them for the better, that's great. If you've changed it and it was like a pilot scheme and it hasn't worked, or it's getting a huge amount of kickback, then at least have the gumption and the bravery to reverse your decision. And that's the way I see it, Steve. It's done because they want people to lose season tickets. It's more viable financially for the club.
Okay, Dolphin Geordie, good morning. He says, it's very hard to hear that we've still got issues with PSR when sponsorships are still not done for the ground, training ground and training kit. Why has the club not addressed this, Stu?
I'm, as you know, I'm flummoxed with it. I just think this, every time we hear, I cringe when I hear Eddie Howe trotting out PSR. It's like some sort of safety blanket for the people in the club. Now, he's saying it, but that doesn't mean he means it. But this is what he's getting told. And, of course, he's not an accountant. He's a football manager or a coach or however you want to label him. His job's not to get involved in accountancy, but it's quite clear Newcastle do have money to spend. And that's not just because I said it. There's many people, even Ben Jacobs, a couple of weeks back, Steve, on your show said that there was money available if they wanted to spend it, but it would have to be the right person. Unless you're Man United, you don't just say, I've got money available, we'll spend it on anyone. So it's disappointing, deeply disappointing that Eddie Howe wasn't backed. But ultimately, I just think that the PSR has been used as an excuse not to grow. So whether they've got bigger plans in the summer, whether they understand they don't want to unsettle the squad too much by bringing replacements in now for maybe people in this squad whose voice carries a lot of weight, so to speak, whether that be a new centre-half, whether that be a new centre midfielder. Sometimes you could look and think, right, we'll try and make the best with what we've got and keep that squad going. And if you are going to have a overhaul, do it in the summer rather than halfway through a season. That bit I get, but it's still, one addition could have made a big difference to this, how the season finishes.
Yeah, Steve says, Keith Barrett nailed that. Well done. The sad part of me is that Keith even had to write such a letter. The disjoint between the fans and the club is a gulf, and all the sugar-coated words of our CEO won't fix it. Nick says, Amanda Staveley was key. PIF, with all their money, don't understand football and local heritage amongst fans. Lose the fans, you lose Newcastle United. Mozart says, no other club hears from their owners at the level that we expect. And Jules has put something in the chat earlier on to the same effect. And I do think that, and I know like many football fans up and down the UK, I do think that, we are slightly different. I would never ever say that we're the greatest fan base in the world or the greatest fan base in the UK. I cringe when we hear that song, to be honest. But it's we're an obsessive breed, Newcastle United supporters, and it is our life. We do tend to, we live 7 days a week for Newcastle United. We always want to know there is a quest, a thirst for knowledge. That's what I should say, a thirst for knowledge. And I think that's why that this whole communication thing from owners is something that people do get obsessed with. I really, really do. Roger says, listening to a proper Man City fan last night and how upset he is, and others there are with new revenue models, season ticket holders getting shot on. Is that what we need to expect here? Probably, because that's what happens when you become a bigger club and you start winning things, Roger. That's what happens. And I think we've spoken many times on different shows on here about that kind of thing. So, yeah, I would say so. Let's try and dig into a few more questions for the last 20 minutes of the show. Tom Dixon says, do you expect to finish in the top half this season still, Stu? Fifth place was where you predicted, to where I predicted at the start of the season. I predicted fifth and winning the FA Cup, which at the moment is still possible, although it doesn't feel like it at the minute. But from your perspective, top half or bottom half, Stu, have you changed your mind?
No, we'll be top half for sure, but it's... Do we have to get knocked out the FA Cup and knocked out the Champions League to be able to get a string of results together? Because this is what annoys us, using Tonali as the one who's been linked away. So he wants to go to Champions League club, but he's going to be playing twice a week. So what's the difference? At the moment, we're 10th, 11th. So we're 5 points, 5 positions away from 15th and 5 positions away from 5th. And the way this Newcastle United is playing this season, we could finish in any one of those 10 or 11 places. So, of course, being an optimist, I still think we can get 5th, and it is achievable. But we're running out of opportunities not to take advantage. And we need a minimum of 4 points, and that's stress minimum of 4 points in the next 2 league games, which is today against Brentford and away to Tottenham on Tuesday. And in fact, really 6 points would be necessary, but I think there's a bare minimum. 4 has to be the level that we're at. That then puts the league in a different slightly slant, but when there's been too many games this season, whether it be Sunderland away or Manchester United away or Villa at home, when we've had the chance to make a significant impact on the league table, just visually, for psychological reasons, you see yourself sitting there as 5th or 4th. It makes a big difference. But then you don't win that game, then you have a European game, and you don't win the next game, and all of a sudden you're back down to mid-table. So without pointing the finger saying, had we done that in this game and had we done it in that game, because every single team in the league can do that, we have to, there's common sense in it, but galvanise ourselves and push ourselves through. They did it a couple of years ago. When they looked like they run out of the first time we qualified for the Champions League, when we looked like we'll run out of steam, they end up getting a second wind. But all I hear from footballers is they'd rather play than train. Well, they're getting the chance to play a lot more than they're training at the moment. So, it's them, the old-fashioned saying, they need to pull their socks up a bit more and stop looking for reasons why they're not doing it and look for reasons why they can do it. And that's mentality. And that has to come from the coach and staff. They've got to go out there believing that they can beat any team, because when they have got that in their head, they actually do.
Yeah.
What's
oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Rangers are now 3 points behind Hearts, so they get excited. Let them get excited. I mean, I've said for a long time, I don't think Hearts will win it, but at the same time, I think it's made the league a bit more interesting, hasn't it, than the 2-horse race everyone expects, or 1-horse race as has been for the last few years. Will I sell Tonali get Anderson back? No, I'd rather keep Tonali than Anderson. No.
Okay, there you go, JJ.
I'd much rather keep Tonali than Anderson. I think Tonali has more ability. Anderson's had a chance to thrive, and he's an extremely talented player. But if it was a choosing of him or Tonali, then Tonali every day of the week.
What's your thoughts and feelings on giving Botman a new contract, given his injuries that he's had since he came to the club?
I think it was a good decision. It'll be just typical Newcastle that don't renew his contract, and he goes and places Van Dijk at Liverpool for 10 million or something, because he's only got a year left on his contract, and then becomes a stalwart for them and becomes injury free. That would just be typical Newcastle. So I think securing an asset like that over a longer period is good. If you look at the ages I was talking about, of Shaw, of Byrne, of Trippier, of the Cells when he was there, and it's STEW, if that helps. Still sounds the same, but he's one of the younger ones, but I'd also like to see, and this is going to be repeated on every show I sit on, is the two fullbacks get signed into long-term deals as well. So even if they are sold, we're protecting our assets and getting a higher price. But the fact that Tino still hasn't signed his, it's okay. You understand he wants to see how it goes till the end of the season. That's his prerogative. He wants to focus on his football, but he's been injured for more than a month, probably nearly 2 months. So there's no reason why they can't sit down and get something nailed in and put a clause in if necessary. Just so announcing these are the easy wins that Ross Wilson should be looking to do. If he's not spending money on players, at least secure the ones with the high sell-on things and fees, and the ones that can actually keep this club moving forward. And people like Tonali, Hall, and Livramento are certainly, and Botman are certainly four of those. So I think it was a good idea. I give him a contract, and hopefully he stays fit.
Gary says, are some of the fan base expecting miracles, Stu, considering the huge gulf in revenue that the so-called Big Six have over us? Yes, we've had money to spend, but we're starting from a low base.
Maybe some are expecting miracles, Steve, but I think we still at the start of the show. Maybe it's because they've been promised miracles, and we have heavily overachieved just about every season. This is the only season that we haven't yet, but it could still be a huge season. We can go deep in the Champions League. I'm sure we'll be Karabag over 2 legs, and I'd fancy us against Chelsea. I was back home and I was at the Chelsea game, and although it was a tale of two halves, they were lucky to get a 2-2 draw with that. And I can see us beating them over 2 legs, and then we're into the quarterfinals of the Champions League, and that brings in much needed revenue as well. So I don't get the way we have to keep using excuses when we've been promised dreams, been promised miracles, but surely everyone has a sense of realism in their own head to think, yeah, we're not going to win the league and FA Cup and Champions League this year. So where would I realistically expect? And we've been led to believe the way the rise has continued, that top 4, top 5 was certainly achievable this season. And because it looks a long way off at the moment, what's the phrase? The natives are getting restless. But some like to be restless for the sake of being restless as well. So again, you've got to cut through the bull, shall we say.
Rackster says, in all the years of supporting Newcastle United, have you seen this unrest fan-supporter divide before? I think we have, haven't we, Stu? It's just different because of social media.
Hang on, Stephen.
Can you hear us?
Trying to hear the questionnaire started echoing.
In all of the years of support Newcastle United, have you seen this unrest fan-supporter divide before? I think I have.
If we go back to the late 80s, and it was sack the board. The fans were United, they wanted the board out. So at the moment, I don't think there's people wanting the board out. Who want to say things just to get likes and don't really mean it. But a lot of it is just social media, and it's toxic at times. And read what you want to read, believe what you want to believe. But someone puts some words on screens to get a reaction, then either don't give them the reaction or just ignore them. So I get that it's divided, but in what way is it? You don't have to be one. Is it Eddie in or Eddie out? How about, does the team win or lose? And we want the team to win. And once the team starts winning, that question gets taken away. Once this team qualifies for Europe, the next question gets taken away. And all stay on the pitch, but I still have this feeling that they were hung out to dry through this window where they weren't given any support whatsoever. But with the fan base, has it been more divided? Probably not, to be fair, because bear in mind, back in the day, I was a match-going fan home and away, so I only got that, and I was living in the city. So everyone wanted Newcastle. People say the team's not playing well, and that, I don't think, apart from a divide, there was the sack the board, they wanted.
Oh dear, we have lost Stu for a while. His internet's been dipping in and out, unfortunately. So I think and we'll give him a couple of seconds to come back. Just let you know, we are back tomorrow with Three's a Crowd, the Northeast Football Podcast. Looking forward to hearing what Rye and Ted have got to say about Middlesbrough and Newcastle. I'm going to go through a couple of the other questions as well while we wait for Stu. Here he is. He's back. You're just having a few problems with your internet, mate, aren't you?
I can't hear you, Steve.
Yeah, you're having a few problems with your internet, Stu, I think.
No, I've got my phone on.
Yeah, can you hear us now?
Very faintly.
Yeah, maybe just go over the questions that are on the screen, mate, if you can. There's one there. A lot of fans understand the blocks regarding the stadium. Why do you think it's taken so long for the training ground, though, Stu?
I can only hear you, Steve, so I'll just read that question, yeah? A lot of fans understand the blockers regarding the stadium. Why is it in? I don't know. I expected us to have a state-of-the-art training ground either in situ or under construction by now. No, there's been more than enough time for whoever has had the answers or the decision making to even take to Saudi and say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and this is going to be the benefit of it, this is how much we need, this is how we can make the payments, this is going to be massive for us, it's going to be great for you, let's do it. Whoever's had that role currently hasn't done it, and that now sits with David Hawkinson. So if he's a man of his word, as I said, he's walked the walk, he's talked the talk. Let's see if he can walk the walk over the next few months. Steve, I'll come out and come back in because I really can't hear you.
I didn't speak. Okay, as I say, we are back tomorrow with Three's a Crowd. I'll run some adverts and we'll be back after this.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com, or contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to United Group Travel, our fanzine sponsor. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2-crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach. All excursions included. Their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com or telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Deposits from £50 per person. A big thanks to Media Arts. Their website, www.media-arts.co.uk. Email info@media-arts.co.uk or telephone 0191 637 5061. If you want to help support the channel, then you can click the subscribe button. We still do 7 shows a week. It is free. Hit the thumb up to like the video and click share to share to your social media. A big thanks to Sports Social Podcast Network. You can listen to us on the road, on this network, or by tuning into iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. You can also join the channel by hitting the join button on YouTube or go to our website, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. You can pay a one-off fee of £25 and you'll receive a membership card, a beer mat, a fridge magnet, a key ring, a badge and a pen. £25, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk.
Okay, welcome back. Do you think we've got a good chance of winning the FA Cup this season, says Tom, Stu?
I'd like to think so. And I actually do believe we'll beat Villa. I think they'll believe they've got bigger eggs to fry and they've got beaten in the last 2 home games, if I remember correctly, of Everton and of Brentford. So if they can beat them, why can't we? Again, it's just, do we prioritise that or do we prioritise the league or the Champions League? But the way it is, it's all hands on board. And give your best in every game and then see what comes at the end of the season. But I think we can win the cup, especially as the other teams in the Champions League will probably go deeper than us in the competition. And the semi-finals are normally around about the semi-finals. The both competitions merge at the same time, where quite clearly teams will prioritise the Champions League. So we've got a chance. I wouldn't be putting too much more money than I already did at the start of the season on it. But I can see us beating Aston Villa next week.
Okay. Do you think that we should do better on VAR next season with decisions taken too long to view, says Tom?
Yeah, and again, something we've highlighted previously, I believe it's one of the reasons why we're seeing more injuries. But again, that's the players' mentality. If they know they're standing still for a long time when it's cold, common sense would tell you that, your muscles are going to cramp up a bit. So this is where I think the medical staff or the training staff should be getting them to move around, keep them working. Should it be better? There's no reason why it shouldn't be. But again, sorry saying it's not good. It's how do we get an answer? Do you get ex-pros in, and then you're going to say, well, he used to play for him or he hated that team. For me, it should be clear. You've got the VAR goal line technologies. No one disputes that. So the biggest dispute really is about the handball rule, because that seems to change every season and no one understands it. You think you understand it, and that's the last year's rule or the year before rule. And the only other one is the offside. And if you've got this semi-automated, which clears it, the only way I think VAR is going to improve is if they simplify it and give more power to the referee. So you can use the goal line technology, you can use the offside, the semi-automated, then it's just getting this handball decision right. And what I'd like to see more as well is people being booked for blatant times, because when they did that last time, it stopped it and then it crept back in again. It needs to be addressed because there's people going down. I don't know why they could do that when they know there's so many cameras on them as well. It's proper lads full watching them spin away as if they've been shot and there's no contact at all. You see them holding the face when they've hit the leg. And, you'll have other people saying you see someone getting treatment on one leg and holding another one as he goes off. It's the George Orwell world that we're living at the moment, where everything is watched, everything is scrutinised. So, I don't know, bigger eggs, fish, surely. Well, you can fry eggs and you can fry fish. Either or, Himanshu, whatever makes you happy. So,
it's definitely a cultural thing.
Yeah, that's why I'd like to see VAR fixed to be simplified, and that would make the decisions quicker. But you can't, I know people say, I'll give it 30 seconds if it's not clear and obvious. But that would then, it would open a can of worms. Are they deliberately deliberating this decision? That was quite hard to say. Are they deliberately deliberating that decision just so it'll favour the team that it goes against, so that they make a decision quicker where they could get the decision wrong? But I think everyone should be in agreement. If you're talking 3, 4, 5 minutes to try and decide if it was a foul or if it wasn't, then it probably wasn't. And let common sense take control and accept that we'll get some wrong. It's just everyone gets about their own team are being treated unfairly, and every club says the same. Every club supporter say the same.
Thanks to Finn in the chat as well. He'd come on. He said, from his perspective, totally agree with Keith Barrett's email, certainly regarding third-party tickets against PSV. Immediately to my right were 2 PSV fans, and to their right, 2 Americans. It was their first ever game. There is zero willingness by the club to stamp this out, probably because most buying third-party site tickets are more likely to be tourists and more likely to be spending fortunes in the club shop. 2 PSV fans, though, they were sound, but in the Gallagher Block V, taking the proverbial, in my opinion. Well said, Finn. And I've got to be honest, mate, where we sit in the ground as well, we've had lots of people from different football clubs sitting around us. Is it going to be the same for the Sunderland game, I wonder, in March? That will be lively if Sunderland fans are sitting in amongst Newcastle fans because they've managed to buy those kinds of tickets. The club need to get a grip of this before there is a serious problem. That's the way I would look at it.
Proactive.
Yeah, be proactive and stamp it out. Okay, is Anti-Mag Madeley the referee today? Yes. Yeah, it's just one thing after another, isn't it? John, last question. Morning, lads. Is it now to give Alanga a good run out and prove he's not a wasted money? If Gordon's out for a while, it's the perfect chance for him. Signs of life in Alanga, Stu, I think.
Yeah, I've stood by him more out of my own stubbornness than what I've visualised on his performances. But I was so happy. Every time we watched him the last 6-7 weeks, I want him to do well. I want him to get this goal. And when the fans started singing his name last week, it seemed to have lifted him. And hopefully the goal against Manchester City will give him a lot more confidence. Well, it should give him a lot more confidence. And the way things are, give him a run in the team. It's the only way we're going to find out if he's the player that they thought they bought or the player that we want. But having someone on for 10 minutes here, 5 minutes here, when the game's really normally decided, isn't going to help anyone. So, do you want to give him a long run in the team? I would give him 5, 6, 7, 8 games consecutive now and say, right, go and prove that's your shirt. Or don't complain when we put Jacob Murphy in front of you for a big game. I hope he comes good, because if not, it's an area we'll have to investigate in the summer. And in the way the financial controls are, we don't have the luxury of being able to go and buy 11 quality players. So having another one ticked off means we should only be looking for 4 or 5 quality players, first team players. And that's what I believe we wanted to do last season. I think they'd already done the squad padding out previously and with some of the signings last year. But I think people like Alanga was bought with the intention of coming straight in the first team, whereas Chow was bought to come in and challenge Shaw. But I didn't think he was expected to replace him and keep his place for as long as he had. So that's a bonus for us. Voldemort and Wissa would have been paid a lot more for us had he had a pre-season. But again, that's his fault and we're the ones suffering for it. Voldemort, scored with his first 6 touches? But all of those were in the box. So once he gets on the pitch, gets in the box, gets some touches, we'll get goals from him. And don't be scared to miss, as Malcolm says.
Great stuff. Stu, have a good weekend. I know you've got a busy day today, rugby football. So enjoy that and look forward to catching up with you next time, mate. Take care. Speak to you soon.
Cheers, Steve. Enjoy, everyone. Have a nice afternoon. Enjoy the match.